This is part 2 of how to heal. This is a very preliminary beginner's level or reminder to us all on different ways that we can regenerate our physical bodies, and go further with that to learn to truly transmute and change consciousness. This is the true nature of healing, is in the change of consciousness. So keep that in mind with everything that I'm saying here. So as I said in part 1, you can go to the website and do all of the readings there. That's it's really about you learning to educate yourself and then practice certain principles that will bring about regeneration. Okay, we know how to begin the detoxification process and fortify the body to withstand the rigorous process of regeneration. And that's from part 1, where I went into a lot of more physical principles, what to let go of course, beginning with sugar and wheat and corn and soy and all of the things that really cause a suppression on the physical level. Of course, alcohol, we touched upon self-medicating yesterday. So, alcohol, drug use, all of that, it's all got to go. If we are truly sincere to ourselves about healing and regenerating, then we really have to be hardcore about the things that we're going to let go of. Okay, from here we move into a more thorough explanation of emotional transmutation, which is what I'm going to talk about today. So first of all, we have to realize that when I say the word resistance, this is a definition of resistance in my work: anything less than pure unconditional love. So when we look at our own consciousness, when we look at our own thoughts, our words, and our emotion, we can see where we have work to do, where we have emotional transmutation. If resistance is anything less than pure unconditional love, then we have a lot of work to do here on this planet. Okay, the principle number 2 that I'm going to introduce today is a principle you've probably already heard before. Jung and many people have said it over the years, and that is, what we resist persists. And that's very pertinent to the work of consciousness change. Let's look at this from a perspective of seeing unconsciousness as containing the bulk of what we resist, which becomes what continuously persists. In other words, we are mostly unaware of how we are making decisions, reacting, and are creating our experience. To take transmutation into the next level, look internally for 3 creative energies: thought, word, and emotion. Thought becomes memory. If experience was resisted, it becomes trauma. Trauma is mostly stored beneath the level of awareness. Willingness is actively remaining aware of what comes to the surface, conscious awareness, to be released. Releasing includes applying the 3 powers. I'm going to talk about, we call it resistance to the resistance, which often, the principle that I shared yesterday, which is feel what we feel with love, often gets sidetracked. When we get into deeper levels of resistance that are coming forth for us to transmute and release, there's often this point where the resistance is too great to love or forgive or be grateful for it. It's just too painful. You know, often it comes in physical pain, and that pain, that physical pain, or that what we're experiencing physically is too intense for us to truly, honestly feel love for it or feel gratitude for it. So what we do then is we go back to what we call the resistance to the resistance. And we'll find the word pattern there. We'll find the actual authentic feelings that we have for that suppressed trauma. And you know, our body has crystallizations that are holding that suppressed trauma. So you know, that's part of the healing crises, is releasing that, and it often comes through the physical first, you know, preceding the emotional aspect. So it's really great to know that when that happens, okay, we have some choices when that happens. We can continually resist it. We can continue to do that. Or we can see if we can love it. So really, really, you know, make an effort to feel what we feel, and really feel, you know, authentically, if we can actually love how that pain feels, or how that, whatever it is, whatever comes up. If we find that we're not capable of it at that time, then we look at, like, how do we feel honestly? And often it is, you know, the word pattern comes up. I hate it. I hate how it feels. I just, you know, I hate it. And, or we're disappointed, or we, you know, there's many, many different layers that we can find there. And the point is to go to how we truly feel about it and work with that. So transmute that. Transmute. So let's say we really hate how something feels. I really hate that pain. I really hate that, whatever the body is presenting. So we feel how much we can love the hate. That may sound counterintuitive, but it is when you experience it, when you actually apply this principle and you experience the shift and the change and the release of those held energies, complete release. If we're thorough with our transmutation process, we will feel a tremendous release of energy, you know, from the physical, emotional components. So yeah, let's continue on here. Expectation, disappointment, or the inability to love the surface memory is often the wall where full transmutation is stopped. Finding the resistance to the resistance and transmuting that allows for forward movement. That's what I was just speaking on. But what if the memory, emotion, or word pattern at surface contain enough resistance that we can't honestly find forgiveness, love, or gratitude? This is common. Often the energy is something we feel as hate. Pain in the physical or emotional body can surface, and the honest feeling is, I hate it. That's the word pattern. Feel how much you can love, enjoy the energy of hate while holding the surfaced memory and words. This is seeing, feeling the resistance to the resistance. It is often what blocks the direct transmutation principle of feel what you feel with love. So that's just to recap what I was saying. That goes for everything. If disappointment comes up and you know, that's blocking, that disappointment is kind of in between what we're looking for. It's in between the you know, the true memory, the memory that is, you know, that we want to come forth to be released, or the true emotion, you know, that's beneath the disappointment. We have to go with the disappointment first. Whatever comes up, that's what we work with. We work with what comes up, and you know, just it's a very natural process. When we commit to ourselves to do this inner work, this is such a natural process. It's not an easy process, but it is a natural one. As we continue on with increased intensity, it's important to understand the healing crises. One simplistic description of the healing crisis is it gets worse or feels worse before it gets better or feels better. This happens when stimulation, circulation, and activation occurs somewhere within the holistic spectrum, either the physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. Healing crisis is a natural process of degeneration or letting go. This allows for regeneration. With the intent for consciousness change, along with the willingness to heal or not to heal, which is I'll talk about that in a minute, we encourage the onset, fullness, and completion of the healing crisis. Firstly, through physical principles, what we talked about yesterday, upgrading nutrients while reducing toxins, also remaining perfectly still and breathing deep and even without cessation. So those are the three main physical principles. Is everything that we're going to do with nutrition or releasing anything that we're putting in or on the body that is not feeding the vitality of the body. That's kind of the area of what we call nutrition. And then, of course, the stillness in the breath. So actively applying emotional principles of transmutation, which eventually opens awareness to the mental body. We'll talk about that in further parts. But I really want to concentrate on the emotional body today. The healing crisis induces change. We can call this a healthy degeneration process. The body detoxifying is one example. With persevering application of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual principles, coherence is inevitable. We call this regeneration. This process is naturally occurring continuously. Within the process of transmutation, we intensify and quicken this natural process. We are conscious and unconscious simultaneously. Being present to consciously interface with whatever surfaces from unconsciousness is the willingness at the onset of every good healing crisis. To be open and honest with what surfaces in thought, word, and emotion, which is suppressed and resisted experience, along with the action of transmutation, are first steps to unraveling and releasing resistance. Self-awareness to consistently edit and refine within the transmutation process. This results in increased response ability. The ability to respond appropriately increases with the absence of resistance or judgment. Resistance can also be, another word for resistance can be judgment. So the following link that is on the page is some points on the healing crises. I'm not going to go in that today. That's part of the self-study. Okay, so just go with that. It's under the Body Electronic Experience by Ely Hart, and it says healing crises. So you can you find it there. It's a much deeper look into what the healing crisis looks and feels like. Okay, and the next link, I'm going to, we'll look at the next link. Excuse me for a moment. The following link is called Stepping into the Fire, and the fire is the transmutational fire. The fire that releases resistance, anything less than love, into what we call the void. It's literally removed from the physical and emotional levels, is what we're concentrating on here. Facing uncomfortable feelings that arise when confronted with awareness of anything less than love requires willingness. When entering the mental body through enthusiastic pain, we soon become aware of patterns of duality. If you haven't integrated the teachings of the 49 levels of emotion, go back to part 1 that I shared there. It's important to the progression of how this will go. When entering the mental body through enthusiastic pain, we soon become aware of patterns of duality. These thresholds of change, where it would be easy to avoid, easy to justify, easier to sublimate, show themselves. Moving from the emotional body into the mental body is a huge leap in conscious awareness. Here we get to view and experience resistance to each side of a duality, then removing the resistance with the power of light, the violet flame. So that's going into the mental body, which we will be talking about on part 3. Let's go back a little bit to, I want to just concentrate a little bit more on the healing crises. And you'll see in my work, I've been an active body electronics instructor for over 20 years. And yeah, I've been getting a lot of downloads, a lot of internal guidance in response to my questioning the format of body electronics, and mostly because people are just simply not interested. So I'm looking at how I can present it in a way that people can perhaps connect to and understand through a more simplistic way of looking at it. I've done that over the years, but that's why I haven't really talked about body electronics thus far in this part. But you'll see Dr. John Rittman Ray was the founder of body electronics, and on this link that I put on today's part, you'll find a little bit more about that. But let's look at what healing crises. John Ray called it the law of healing crises. And I think a lot of these wordings, a lot of this, John passed away in 2001. He did the bulk of his work in the 1980s and 90s. And before that as well, there was a lot of work done before that. But the majority of the people that he taught were in the 80s and 90s. And a lot of our language has changed. I mean, we've come a long way in the last 20 or 30 years. It's really amazing how, in certain ways we have changed, we have gained access to so much via the internet and a lot of communication. It has also been detrimental in many, many ways. Of course, we can see that in our daily lives. The lack of physical and in-person connection and communication is so important. And that's really what body electronics relied upon. We gathered, we gathered in groups. John had large groups, 200 people at times. But it was often, in a intensive, it was common to have 100 people doing the inner work. And I would love to see that again. I am willing and ready at this time to hold intensives where many, many people come together. As you have probably seen in my announcements on my website and elsewhere on social medias, I don't see in person anyone who has taken the mRNA injections. I don't see them in a professional setting. So I don't. My clients are not people who have chosen not to be injected, and also that extends to all of my intensives. So, excuse me. So that's that's a line that I had to draw in the sand a few years ago. This is March now in 2024. So, when all of this came out in 2021 with the mandates, I could see very clearly, even prior to that, of course, I've never been a supporter of injections. I I mean, we can go on and on and on about that, but that's the line in the sand that I have drawn. So just to know that is, I'm happy to assist anyone who has taken the injections and have since found out more information about what's in them and detrimental effects. So if that's the case, I'm happy to assist you online. I've been seeing many clients who have come to that realization, and happy to do that for you, but not in person. Okay, let's look at what John wrote. I interjected in some of this too, so yeah, so let's go. Healing crises will occur only when an individual is ready both physiologically and psychologically. Hence the what I started with on part 1 with the physical principles, and then this is psychologically is referring to all the educational process, which is, I can only give so much of education. I have all of John's books that are out of print free of charge on my website. They're called Logic in Sequence. You can find them there. There's so much education on my website, and that is up to each individual to educate themselves. It's really about reading the books, reading the posts, applying those principles best we can in daily life, and finding the questions that arise. I'm happy to do online work with people, whether it be individually or with groups that have I've done that so many times over the years, where people request like a group information or Q&A. I'm happy to do that. So you can contact me about that. A healing crisis will begin from within out in reverse order chronologically as how the symptoms have appeared, tempered by the intensity of the trauma. The individual will have the opportunity to re-experience and release each trauma, both physiological and psychological, beginning with a trauma of least severity, or, because I've seen this not be true, whatever we are ready and willing to process in that moment of time. That's me interjecting there. Originally it was written beginning with the trauma of least severity. So we're looking at what we know. That can be, I've seen people get on the table for the first time, and they're, due to their willingness and their readiness and their preparation, they come forth with the most deep and profound traumas that they are ready and willing to work with and release. And that's always being shown to be absolutely perfect, even though we may feel like this is, often, I've experienced this so many times over the years that I often feel like this is too much for me to handle, and so I go to that energy of this is too much, and release the resistance to it being too much, at which point then I can really get into what has actually come up. But it can be very overwhelming. It must be recognized that traumas involving emotions, which include all traumas, will be released in order beginning with unconsciousness, apathy, grief, fear, anger, pain, and eventually enthusiasm. So that's the levels of the emotional body that I was referring to. So look back at that and on part 1 and integrate that into your awareness. Eventually enthusiasm, and I want to say here what enthusiasm in the emotional body is, the love, the energy, the oneness that we can access when we get to that level of emotion. It resonates with the pineal. And when we get to that, and of course it's in every level. So enthusiasm right down to unconsciousness, but we start, from the bottom up, and that energy comes from the bottom up. But at every level, we have enthusiasm at the top of every level. And we can access that whatever level we're working with. Let's say we're working with apathy and we have the word patterns of I can't, you know, and it's like this apathetic, uncaring level that we all contain in our emotional body. We can be very lovingly and enthusiastically feeling that energy, and that's how it's released. And that loving, enthusiastic energy is there for us to access. So wherever we are on the emotional body, that energy is there for us to access. We need only but look for it. And that goes with forgiveness and gratitude. It's there. It is within us always. It's only up to us to access it from where we are working. From where we are working. Let's see. And we do that in conjunction with the appropriate word patterns for each emotion and thought patterns, which is sensory memory, which are accessible at each level. Unconditional love and unconditional forgiveness are keys to apply to transmute any resistance at any level once these resistances are brought to view through the applications of principles. Okay, that goes into a lot more depth, and we're already up to about half an hour here. So look at part 1, wholehealthcenter.com. Read today's post, part 2, and we'll continue on with part 3 in the near future. Thank you for listening, and most importantly, thank you for reading this material and applying it. That's the most important aspect, is application of principles. Thank you so much.